Hey guys, Buffing Game back today, bringing a video, and today we're going to go over everything about Call of Duty Vanguard, how I think the game itself is going to be, and then mainly we're going to be focusing on the Warzone integration. So, first off, I'm going to let the trailer play in the background. I'll leave the link down below to the Call of Duty YouTube page for this video if you guys want to check out the trailer in full without me talking over it, in case for some reason you haven't seen it. But this was announced today via the in-game event, which took place, the Battle for Verdansk, where really everyone on the map just kind of shot at a train, and then after you shot at the train for long enough, you were able to see this trailer. Or you could have been someone like me who just waited to see it online and didn't participate in the train event. So, what we know about the game so far, obviously, World War II, it's going to take place on all 4 fronts. Campaign is going to include all 4 fronts. You're going to take on 4 different soldiers on each front, so that should be pretty interesting. Multiplayer will have 16 core maps, 6v6 maps, 20 maps total. There will be a Zombies crossover for the first time in Call of Duty history. Zombies is being developed by Treyarch, as well as Warzone will have a new map and a new anti-cheat system, apparently. So that'll all be coming either with the integration of Vanguard or after. If we look back at Cold War, I think the weapons and all that stuff came in later in December, so a few weeks after the Cold War game launched itself. So first off, Call of Duty Vanguard itself, see the trailer in the background. Actually, the trailer looks awesome. It's on the same engine as Modern Warfare, except for slightly upgraded. Obviously, they're going to improve on these engines over the years. It's been nearly 2 years by the time this releases, over 2 years since that engine was developed, when they developed Modern Warfare. So, obviously, the engine is slightly modified, but it is an improved version of what Modern Warfare was developed on. So, obviously, it's going to look beautiful. The trailer itself, I think, is really cool. I think it'll be fun to fight in the World War II fronts again. And again, it looks visually beautiful for a World War II game. Probably going to be the best looking World War II game we've seen to date, I would expect, especially on the Modern Warfare engine. And again, there's going to be slight destructibility featured in single player, but mainly multiplayer will have slight destructibility via environments and some buildings. Nothing major from what we're reading so far, but there will be some destruction available in the game in multiplayer. So that's really the meat of everything with the game. I think it looks really good. As we go into the single player, it has been confirmed the characters that you will be playing as. So for the United Kingdom, Sergeant Arthur Kingsley. You'll also be playing as Lieutenant Polina Petrov from Russia, and I believe we've seen her in that new cutscene for the Warzone victories. For America, we'll be playing as Captain Wade Wilson, and for the UK, Second Lieutenant Lucas Riggs you'll be playing as. So interesting lineup here. Not sure which characters are which. They haven't really gone into more detail. We will be seeing campaign gameplay at Gamescom here next week. I believe they're going to open up with Gamescom on August 24th, which is going to be Tuesday. Should be interesting because we're going to see Battlefield coming up the day after that on Wednesday the 25th, apparently, with some multiplayer footage. So that should be really interesting. Some cool things that you can get here from pre-ordering this. They've already announced the pre-order bundles. You get different blueprints available. You also have different operators and skins available. If you pre-order the game now, you'll get a special blueprint for what looks like the PPSH that you can use in Cold War as well as Warzone. And then if we look at what you get for the limited edition bundles or the Ultimate Edition bundles, the same standard things we've seen since Modern Warfare. So you'll get the 3 operator outfits for these operators, Lucas, Paulina, and Wade. You'll get different blueprints for those weapons. We see some sort of abomination of the STG-44. We see a Snowstorm sniper rifle, which I don't know what that's supposed to be, maybe a Mosin Nagant, as well as a Thunderhead blueprint for what looks like to be the Sten Mark II, I want to say, the Sten submachine gun. So all of that available. You also get this Frontlines weapon pack, which shows a Thompson as well as another variant of the Sten. 2 times weapon XP and double XP for 10 hours total. So a lot of things here. And the big news now, what do we think about Vanguard itself? It looks great. It looks like it's going to be an awesome World War II game, and I'm really happy for the developers at Sledgehammer for developing this. It looks like obviously they put a lot of work into this. I think standalone it's going to be a great game. However, that being said, personally I'm very burnt out from World War II, and I really have no desire to play World War II. Whether or not I cover this game is yet to be determined. We'll just have to really see if it captivates me. If I do anything, it'll be maybe some single player and maybe going through the weapons for a few videos here and there, but I definitely do not plan on covering this game extensively, and that kind of goes back to Battlefield 5. I remember when Battlefield 5 was announced, it was kind of like a huge letdown because I was looking forward for modern shooters, and really with World War II, it just seems to be so limiting. I'm somebody that grew up on World War II shooters, the original Call of Duties, the original Battlefields, all of those games. I think Call of Duty 1 through 3 were all World War II, as well as Battlefields. There's some other games around back then too. Medal of Honor was a big one that I played a lot. So I literally grew up on World War II shooters. So for somebody like me, it's not as appealing as it would be for a younger person who really hasn't experienced this before. But for me, World War II is kind of beaten to death, and I really don't want to have anything to do with it anymore. So at this point in my life, I'm more of a modern tactical shooter fan, which is why I migrated and was a big fan of Modern Warfare when it was released. Cold War was a big letdown, and I think, again, Vanguard looks awesome. However, I'm not going to be somebody that's super interested in it, and therefore I won't be covering it heavily, just because, obviously, if I'm not excited about it, my excitement's not going to translate into my videos. So I think it's going to be a great game. I hope it's successful. It looks awesome, but it's probably not going to be my cup of tea. But let's talk about Warzone. So the Warzone integration is saying that they're going to get a new map as well as a PC anti-cheat. Now, I also read via CallOfDuty.com that because Modern Warfare and Vanguard are on the same engine, that the transition should be, or the integration itself should be seamless. But I have to really heavily doubt that. I think the one big issue here that I see, and I had some back and forth on Twitter with this, Cold War integration was a disaster, and I would argue it is still a nightmare. There's no balance whatsoever. If we look at the Modern Warfare weapons compared to the Cold War weapons, they're still not balanced nearly a year later. What is it, 8-9 months later? These weapons are still not balanced. They don't have recoil. They do heavy amounts of damage. If you look at any of the Cold War assault rifles like the Krig or the Farah, compared to the lowest recoil weapons like the M13 and the Kilo 141, the recoil difference is insane. You would think you were firing a 50 cal machine gun with the Modern Warfare assault rifles versus the Cold War weapons. So the fact that they haven't been able to properly balance Cold War weapons inside of Warzone makes me very, very hesitant to even want to play this game once these Vanguard weapons are introduced. We're obviously going to have classic World War II weapons like the MG42, the STG-44, the Mosin Nagant, the M1 Garand, the Sten, the Bren, anything you can think of. The MG34 probably make a return. There's a bunch of different World War II guns which we've seen beaten to death in all of these previous World War II games. And they also mentioned that the gunsmith is going to be back. And I really, honestly, just can't even imagine what kind of customization they can do with this time period. It's going to be very, very difficult. We've seen it attempted before in World War II, and most of the time it's pulled off okay. But if you're going to have a gunsmith in a game like that needs to be integrated into Warzone, we obviously know the kind of attachments that there's going to be on these weapons. So personally, I don't think it will be fitting for the weapons whatsoever. You're going to have different types of suppressors, crazy drum magazines and things like that that wouldn't really fit the time period whatsoever. But also, how does that balance? How do World War II weapons balance against weapons that were developed? If we look at 1940s era weapons, and then we look at those weapons compared to 1980s era weapons, so we have nearly a 35-year jump there. If we look at the time period for Cold War, that's technically 40 years of a time period jump where technology would have increased. And then from Cold War period to modern day 2019 when Modern Warfare takes place, again, another 40 years. So overall, you're spending 80 total years of different weapons that would need to be properly balanced. And I can't fathom how they're going to balance a lot of the World War II weapons with the Cold War weapons with the Modern Warfare weapons if they still have not been able to balance the Cold War weapons 9-10 months later. So makes me very hesitant. The anti-cheat, that's really, really good news. We just saw a bunch of streamers who got caught busted with the showing their hacks on stream. This seems to be a common reoccurrence. I personally run into hackers nearly every single game, and that one golden game you get without a hacker is the best experience ever. The game itself, Warzone, is amazing when you don't have hackers. But behind that, once that's all taken care of, assuming the anti-cheat is actually foolproof, which I think we can assume it won't be, especially if Activision is developing it internally instead of leveraging others. So we'll have to see what they do with this. And again, how are they going to balance these weapons if they still haven't been able to balance the Cold War weapons? It makes me very hesitant. But with the anti-cheat, again, if that works perfectly well, you still have the weapon balancing problem, which has really plagued Warzone consistently since it was released. Maybe a few months after release when we started getting new weapons like the Grau, the Bruin, things like that. Just the balancing time and turnaround to balance these weapons takes far too long. But the good news is there will be a new map finally, so hopefully it's not just a 1940s era variant of Verdansk. It needs to be a completely new map, which they're saying it is, but again, they said that Verdansk 84 was also a quote-unquote new map. So I really don't know what to expect with that until we get foolproof information from Call of Duty, from Sledgehammer Games themselves. We'll have to wait and see what they're going to give us. So personally, not super excited for it, especially with the integration. Then we look a year forward from now in 2022. It's supposed to be Modern Warfare 2 again with Infinity Ward's title. So if that is Modern Warfare 2, then you're going to have another iteration of Modern Warfare weapons introduced into Warzone with that integration. So you're going to have multiple different weapons from the modern era, World War II era, and the Cold War era in the 1980s. It's going to be a mess. So personally, I'm much more excited for Battlefield 2042, just because I think Warzone is a great game. Modern Warfare itself is a great game. The direction of Cold War and Vanguard just not going the direction I want. I hope they're all successful. I'll definitely cover little things here and there. Definitely jump into Warzone at some point after the integration and see how it is. Check out the new map. I'm excited to see how that is and check out how the anti-cheat actually works. But besides that, Battlefield 2042 is really going to be my cup of tea. I'm more excited at 2042 than anything, to be honest. And I think the World War II trailer, when I watched the trailer for Vanguard, my reaction was, wow, it looks great, but I really don't care. Unfortunately, you have Battlefield 5 that failed pretty epically at the World War II time period, unfortunately, with just the content, what they represented for World War II. It seems that Vanguard's going to do a more to true version of that, but however, they just did World War II I believe it was 2 or 3 years ago with Call of Duty World War II. So it's going to be a very similar version of that. I'm not sure how much more played out you can get the World War II version, especially if you look at World War II as a time period. If you really want a good World War II experience, there's games like Hell Let Loose and Postscriptum out there, which are much more true to form for a World War II genre shooter. If you look at the old school Medal of Honors, things like that did a really, really good job. I have no doubt Vanguard's going to be a great game. I think it's going to be extremely successful. But again, World War II has just been beaten to the ground at this point. It's kind of unfortunate. I think maybe World War II should have been coming at a later time. Maybe now isn't the right time. Maybe it is the right time. But World War II is going up against what's going to be kind of a powerhouse of a Battlefield game, at least it looks like, being Battlefield 2042. So it should be interesting to see. I think this is kind of going to be the reverse of what we saw with the Battlefield 5 release. I think, I forgot which Call of Duty came out at that time to combat that. I believe it was Black Ops 4. So you had Black Ops 4 versus Battlefield 5. And obviously Battlefield 5 was received horribly. I think Vanguard will be received very, very well. I think it'll be a great game. But then you have that going up against Battlefield 2042, which is basically like a sleeping giant coming back as Battlefield right now. And I think this is going to be the year. I don't think Battlefield will outsell Vanguard by any means. Obviously, Warzone is still going to be extremely popular, especially with an anti-cheat. However, I think the better game is hands down going to be Battlefield, no questions asked. And that's typically the case, minus a few offshoots here and there, like Battlefield 5 was unfortunately just a nightmare. But typically the Battlefield games, even though they don't outsell Call of Duty, because they're typically not as casual, Battlefield games seem to always be the better games. So let me know down below what you guys think. What do you think of Vanguard overall? What do you think of the Warzone integration for Vanguard? And what did you think of the reveal event today with the Battle of Verdansk? So again, like I said, I think Vanguard is going to be extremely successful. I'm excited to see the gameplay at Gamescom next week, but personally just really not excited unless I see a lot more that's going to get me excited. Don't get me wrong, I think a lot of the weapons are going to be great. The MG42, things like that would be actually a lot of fun to use in Warzone, but I'm really going to need to see a lot more to get me actually excited for another World War II shooter. So let me know down below what you guys think. Are you going to buy Vanguard? Are you going to be playing Warzone after this integration takes place with Vanguard and the new anti-cheat? Or are you going to be going over to Halo, Battlefield 2042, something else? Or maybe you're going to be someone that's going to be playing all of them. Let me know down below what you guys think. Till next time, this is Buffer Gaming, out.